There is no challenge too great, no mission too hard. As long as we are joined in common purpose, as long as we maintain our common resolve, our journey moves forward, and our future is hopeful, and the state of our union will always be strong. We don't turn back. We leave no one behind. We pull each other up. We draw strength from our victories, and we learn from our mistakes, but we keep our eyes fixed on that distant horizon, knowing that Providence is with us and that we are surely blessed to be citizens of the greatest nation on earth. While each of us will pursue our own individual dreams, we are an American family, and we rise or fall together as one nation and as one people.
Politically speaking, 2012 was Barack Obama's year, re-elected to a second term as president and in more convincing fashion than many expected. When the legacy of Barack Obama is written, the events of 2012 will go down as a critical chapter. But while the president was certainly the star of 2012, politically speaking, he was far from the only story. A look back now from ABC's Karen Travers.
To win a second term, President Obama had to overcome a well-funded opponent, a struggling economy, and voters' doubts that he had the right agenda to turn the nation around. And after a roller coaster election season, he got them. Mitt Romney may have started off as the frontrunner, but to win the Republican nomination, he had to fend off some feisty challengers.
He is the worst Republican in the country to put up against Barack Obama.
The odds are very high I'm going to be the nominee.
And overcome self-inflicted wounds.
I like being able to fire people who provide services to me.
After nearly 50 primary contests, Romney finally clinched the nomination, and it was on to the general election.
It will be a choice between
Two very different paths.
Their battle focused on the economy, the overwhelming top issue to voters.
We can't afford another 4 years like the last 4 years.
we need more tax cuts for working Americans.
But early on, two key moments changed the subject and helped the president.
I think same-sex couples should be able to get married.
The Supreme Court has upheld the requirement that every American buy health insurance.
In June, President Obama announced a new policy that would allow at least 800,000 young immigrants facing deportation to stay in the U.S.
In their hearts, in their minds, they are Americans through and through.
And he was rewarded on Election Day. Hispanics made up 10% of the electorate this year, and the president won 71% of them. Mr. Obama had the power of the presidency, but he also had his own missteps, which kept Romney in the running.
You didn't build that.
Neither side saw a major bounce out of their conventions. Both may be remembered for moments that didn't come from the candidates.
What do you mean, shut up? The numbers just don't add up.
Just as Romney's campaign was hoping to hit the reset button, another major self-inflicted wound.
The 47% who are with him, who are dependent upon government.
Pundits declared doom for the Republican contender, but the president didn't even bring that up in their first debate, giving Romney a convincing win and a burst of life in the national polls. Then a late October surprise from Mother Nature that put the campaign on hold.
This morning, the perfect storm.
And resulted in some strange political bedfellows.
And I want to thank the president personally.
By the end of this long, nasty campaign, millions of Americans felt the same as this sobbing 4-year-old.
I'm tired of Barack Obama and Mitt Romney.
On November 6th, a historic re-election win for President Obama, who picked up every critical battleground state.
Barack Obama has been re-elected the 44th president.
There were tears in Boston.
I so wish that I had been able to fulfill your hopes to lead the country in a different direction.
And jubilation in Chicago, as the president looked ahead to 4 more years.
I returned to the White House more determined and more inspired than ever.
Karen Travers, ABC News, Washington.
And for more on the year in politics, the subject we focus on more than any other here on RFL, let's bring back our special New Year's panel. And we've had some time to reflect since the election, 2 months now. Looking back, do we feel like Barack Obama won this election, or Mitt Romney lost this election, or some combination of the two?
I have some combination of the two, Andrew. I think that Mitt Romney's 47% tape was more devastating than I thought it would be. All it did was confirm a caricature that the Obama campaign had been painting since the early part of the year, which was, this is a guy who's out of touch. He's Gordon Gekko combined with Thurston Howell, and he's not here to help you. I'm here for you, Mr. Middle Class Man. So that hurt him. And then, but Obama's debate performances, particularly the first one, was horrendous. So he didn't seize the mantle when he could have. And in the end, a very interesting stat, 333,000 votes separated these two candidates. So, what are you talking about, Joe? It was a couple of million. In 4 swing states, if those 333,000 votes, New Hampshire, Virginia, Ohio, Colorado, went to Romney instead of Obama, you have a different president. So while it was a landslide in essence from an electoral perspective, it was much closer than I think people give it credit for.
President Obama did a pretty, I agree with your analysis, but President Obama did a pretty good job, his entire team, of winning this thing, from throwing Mr. Romney on the defensive from the beginning. Romney's team, he may have been a good candidate. He had his troubles in the primary, you know, starting as a moderate, going to the right because of the other Republican candidates, trying to come back to the middle. And the final debate on foreign affairs, basically hugging President Obama, saying, me too. But the Obama team tagged Romney in a way that he was thrown off in terms of his business practices, in terms of his tax returns. Romney's team found himself on the defensive a good deal of the campaign. Almost everyone agrees that first debate was horrendous by President Obama in Denver. I still don't understand why he landed the same day of the debate to take part of the debate that night. But with that said, he improved for debate number 2 and debate number 3. President Obama had a much better national convention than the Republicans did. So in the end, Obama won it, and convincingly, winning some states that Democrats in the past have had trouble winning.
The year in politics was so dominated by the presidential election and other elections overall, and I was thinking back trying to come up with some other headlines from the year as to what the biggest non-election political story was. Same-sex marriage, the DREAM Act, the gun control debate that came up late in the year. I really think, though, it was Obamacare and the ruling from the Supreme Court when it related to Obamacare. I'm curious if you agree, or what other political headlines from the year you think might rival that for the biggest one, other than the election.
I think gay marriage was certainly, that came to the forefront back in the spring. It's interesting because a lot of people say, Barack Obama was, for gay marriage, and that's why I support him. Well, for the first 4 years of his presidency, he actually wasn't. So was that a political calculation? It depends on what side of the ledger that you're on. But to your point, there were plenty of other stories there as well. The DREAM Act was big. You see what Obama carried in the election. It was women, it was minorities, and it was young people. And these were the people that were supposed to be leaving him, and the enthusiasm gap was supposed to be going. And while he did get less votes, Mitt Romney barely got more votes than John McCain, and you thought there was all this enthusiasm on the Republican side, and it just never came because in the end, to your point, Dominic, he couldn't hold his base. When he went back to the center after he left the right, those people didn't go with him, and that was the difference in the election.
I would say the headline, non-political headline, that's a reoccurring one that will occur repeatedly over the next 4 years, gridlock in Washington. We saw it play out with no agreement on the fiscal cliff.
Right.
We saw it play out with what got us into the fiscal cliff situation, the ceiling debt debate. That's one that's going to continue to happen, and I don't think we're paying enough attention to it. But this divide in Washington, where these guys cannot get along with each other.
Oh, great. More gridlock to look forward to. From the national political stage now to our regions, 2012 bringing with it some political exits of local lawmakers, some ending their careers voluntarily, others having them ended for them. A few notable for going from lawmakers to lawbreakers, and a final farewell for a longstanding congressman from New Jersey. We say goodbye in this brief retrospective. One more poke in at Pedro Espada. We go from politics to the arts when our look back at 2012 continues. The year ended with this film. Les Miserables tops at the weekly box office, but was it among the biggest movies of the year? And what songs took the top spots on their charts? 2012 in pop culture is next. Stay with us.